Team Liquid heard I called them a Korea boo last year and decided to change it up a bit by keeping their American mid laner and getting yet another import jungler and bringing back a good Korean mainstay. At this point, at least get some Korean sponsors or something, Steve. Team Liquid have built a lineup of Impact, UmTi, APA, Yeon, and Corejj. They've decided to build upon the foundation they built and see if there's any more gas in the tank for their remaining pieces. Let's go through the roster and see if Steve built a cohesive roster instead of just throwing a wad of cash at players. Impact is returning to Team Liquid, and I'll just say that Impact has always been one of my favorite players to watch. Countless times we've seen him play the ultimate weak side, with teams thinking they can tower dive him only to end up giving him multiple kills. You couldn't ask for a better weak side player. And I think teams are slowly starting to catch on that he's one of the best pieces to have in the LCS, hence why I created a video called Impact is Forever Underrated. Now, the problem is that he's in a lineup that has no firepower. He's got a rookie mid laner, a rookie ADC, and I use the term rookie in the colloquial sense, obviously, and a jungler that's come from historically some of the worst LCK teams in history. It looks like this decision to grab Impact has two factors attached to it. That if you snatch up Impact, you don't have to face the menace that is the ultimate rock of the top lane. This is a type of addition by subtraction, as you deny your enemies a critical piece and also someone that is going to know how to be meta resistant, and as he's proven it every single time in every single season. The second thing is he's widely known to be a great player for VOD review and just an overall good leader. This is the secret Impact buff that Team Liquid must have also considered, as this helps out your rookies and might be able to take them to the next level. If your team needs an in and out of game teacher, Impact is the obvious choice. Even recent evidence such as the interview of Thorin and Peter Dunn shows just how valuable Impact is to a team of rookies.
The first thing I did was when I came into EG is I said I want Impact, because we knew Impact was going to be a free agent. I've talked about my roster building philosophy, which is build your culture in year one and then fill in the pieces. And Impact was exactly the type of guy that if I'm going to build a team with rookies, this is the guy I want to have in my team.
So with these two aspects combined, I actually don't hate Impact in this lineup, but it is with the caveat that the other assembled pieces are able to improve and start making their own aggressive plays to bring up the overall level of the team in terms of stopping power. UmTi fills the jungle role as he's come from the LCK under the Bryan banner for 2023. Now, already, you should stop and think, this sounds like a fucking awful idea. Yeah, you'd be right in thinking that. Bryan have been a bottom feeder team for quite a while in the LCK, usually placing in the bottom half, and before that, UmTi comes from the generic Green Wings, which of course is notorious for being a terrible team. UmTi has been the constant factor among those rosters, and since he's been playing since about 2016, it should cause even greater concern that he hasn't been picked up by yet another LCK team during his entire time in the LCK. Now, either Team Liquid scouts see something that I don't, or they're just throwing shit at a wall and hoping it sticks. I'm willing to take my own opinion with a grain of salt because, to be honest, I've never watched a lot of UmTi to have an opinion on this guy. Whenever I watch the LCK, first, it's usually the playoffs, but second, even if I do watch the regular season, it's never been the bottom feeder teams like Bryan or Jin Air, so I can't really say that I can judge him on a personal level. What's worse is that his stats are appalling on basically every champion, considering he's been on losing teams, but his best champions look to be Lee Sin, Graves, and Lilia, where he's dragged his team across the finishing line. One thing to consider when looking at players like UmTi, ones that come from terrible teams, as they aren't innocent, in that they've played for so long with them that he's the obvious common factor that sticks out. In a way, he's created his own hell, but maybe he'll end up being like Lyra from 2017 Spring in the LCS, where he was an absolute beast on the last place team, not able to carry his team hard enough, but also getting voted first team All-Pro in the LCS votes. Not to mention, UmTi's English seems to be really good, and he'll have some of the best people to introduce him to both the language and environment with Corejj and Impact. UmTi is in control of his own destiny to prove he can do some damage on a team not named Jinair or Bryan. Always Plan Ahead returns to the lineup for Team Liquid, and although the temptation is always there to go for a more veteran name, this one makes sense. APA replaced Harry in Week 4 in the LCS Summer Split of 2023, and that means he's barely had any time to get his bearings. He didn't have the best showing at Worlds, and in all reality, it's a surprise that they even made it that far to Worlds. APA got dumpstered a couple of times, especially by the likes of Palafox, and even domestically, he had some very big mistakes costing his team the game, but that's typically growing pains you will see from any player. The real strength of APA seems to be his map awareness. He's got a real knack for TP plays, and it's resulted in some clutch instances to help his team get into a better position. I'd actually say it's not even APA's laning or mechanics which are the shining points of his gameplay, but rather his ability to see additional plays other than the ones he's directly involved in. I guess he's kind of living up to his namesake. The real issue is if he'll be able to brush up his laning and create additional plays off of his own back rather than reacting to the conditions of his teammates. This is the only way this team will have success. If UmTi can help get vision around mid and make APA comfortable going for outplays, hopefully we can see APA come into his own this season. Yeon remains with Team Liquid for 2024, and I think by all measures he was above average domestically. That's not to say he was a particularly standout player on TL last year, but there's been a couple instances where he would get solo killed, which points towards some laning problems. He's also been caught out a couple times during international play against T1 and at Worlds, and even domestically there were situations where he could have positioned better during teamfights to output optimal damage, but now I give you the caveats for Yeon. It's incredibly hard to function as an ADC when you have a top laner like Summit, which plays teamfights very selfishly and has no regard for his teammates or their positioning. Also, consider that Corejj really didn't have a great year during 2023, and you can see that almost any ADC would have difficulty functioning on Team Liquid for 2023. So the big bet here is that Yeon can develop more for 2024 under the tutelage of Impact and a more refreshed Corejj. It's a good bet, but it's also one that can leave Team Liquid quite vulnerable as a lineup, considering it's going to take some ramp up time to get the rookies up to speed. Corejj is back with Team Liquid for another year after a disappointing 2023 individually. To bet on Corejj is the appropriate move here because he was just so phenomenal with Doublelift, and even with Tactical, he was still the best support in the league. The thing about Corejj is that he's at his best outside of the lane. He's not a particularly lane dominant support, but he gets things done either outside of the laning phase or during roams. This may also point towards his solo queue tendencies and his ability to climb, as typically the best way to climb as a support is to roam and create plays on the map that then snowball the rest of your laners. Corejj needs to return to this form in order for Team Liquid to even function properly, but the problem is that he doesn't have the roster to support such a facilitative playstyle. Once again, there's really no firepower on this roster, so I don't think this will really be the year we see the rise of Corejj, which is unfortunate because I think many will misinterpret that as Corejj just isn't good anymore, but in fact it's his particular playstyle, which is rather unconventional for a support that needs specific pieces around him to function properly. With that said, Impact is the other player on this roster that will at least offload leadership duties from Corejj's shoulders. This will hopefully help Core focus on his own gameplay and at least help him return to form perform in some capacity. Overall, I think this Team Liquid roster is going to struggle if these rookies don't ramp up quickly, but in particular, if they do not develop into aggressive players. Impact is already set in his ways as a weak side player, although I wish he would play more carry oriented sometimes, and the roster has 2 rookies and a Korean jungler from a slew of rosters that has conditioned his playstyle to function around a team he cannot rely on. This roster probably has the biggest variance out of all the teams in the LCS. They could be second, they could be sixth. If I'd know any better, I'd say Team Liquid have gone into this season expecting massive leadership from their 2 veterans and a massive growth from their younger players and import. Big bet. Remember to check me out later for a power ranking of all the rosters. Until then, peace.